Alright, that appears to be working. Hi guys, and welcome back to another night of fan fiction reading with my mini puppet theater in behind me. We've got a huge chunk of the story going through tonight, and sorry if you can hear the noises in the background. My mom and dad are here, so they're like here without being here. So I think I will go ahead and read my disclaimer, just because we have so much to get through tonight. Really excited, a lot of stuff coming in through. So, this is a work of fan fiction, using characters from various fairy tale, TV, and film sources, including The House of Mouse. You'll know the reference immediately when you hear it, trust me. I began writing these shorts in order to preserve the tales that my best friend Shannon and I told to each other when we were children, and consistently getting Disney dolls for our birthdays and Christmases. That being said, I claim no ownership over certain plots, characters, or bits of world I am borrowing to tell these stories. The situations cobbled herein are meant to entertain and are not part of any official storyline, and you should not ascribe them to the original story or canon. No money is being made here, as previously stated. This is just for fun, and I hope you all get as much enjoyment out of me reading this as I have while writing it. Additionally, I'd like to thank the House of Mouse and a cast of several others for providing such a wealthy supply of fairy tale happy endings that I thoroughly enjoy destroying. So, with that out of the way, away we go. Chapter 2 continued. A King of Trials. Miliato had been king no more than 7 years when the woes of the Red Forest once again reared their ugly head. The sweepers had returned, and it was up to the king to come to the aid of the Nightlands. When he arrived, the king discovered that the sweepers had laid siege to the village of Hesse, a place that lay deep within the forest itself. Many of the inhabitants were dead, but knights, dressed in the finest black armor, were doing their best to beat back the oncoming horde. With the reinforcements at their side, the tide began to turn, and the sweepers were once again banished back to their bleeding trees, from whence they came. Following the siege, the king approached a small and slight knight, who had saved his life during the battle. He asked that he remove his helmet so that he could properly thank the young warrior, and asked if he would consider joining his entourage of brave knights. The warrior removed his helmet, but what a shock the king received when he beheld not a young man under the black helm, but rather a young woman. She laughed merrily at his surprise, and said that she didn't think that the king allowed such a sex as hers into the royal guard. Recovering himself, Miliato dropped to one knee and said that no, it was not customary for women to be knights in his kingdom, but that his desire to have her by his side had not diminished, and would she consider the prospect of becoming his beloved wife instead? The young knight scoffed at his offer. Why should she accept such a request? Were her skills so paltry that they must be confined to a marriage bed, instead of where they truly belonged, by his side as a loyal knight? The king balked, not knowing how to respond. The woman turned to go, but Miliato stayed her with pleas that he would do anything to secure her hand. She had but to name it, and it would be done. The woman turned around and regarded him thoughtfully. Then she replied that she would set him 3 impossible tasks. If he completed all 3, then she would consent to his proposal of marriage. If not, then he must needs leave the forest and never seek her out again. The king agreed. The following day, the king returned to seek out the female warrior. He found her waiting for him under the shade of an oak tree. When she caught sight of him, she commanded for him to halt. He obliged, not wanting her to think him too forward. After she was certain he would come no farther, the Lady Knight held out her hand and showed him the silver sieve she had brought with her, which would be used in his first task. She instructed him to take the sieve, and with it go to the well that lay within the forest, and bring it back to her full of water, before the sun climbed to noon. Perplexed, Miliato strode forward to take the sieve from her hand. He wanted desperately to ask her to set him some other task. Slaying a dragon would be preferable, even easier than this. But in the end, he squared his shoulders and wandered away into the forest in search of the well. That, at least, proved the easier part of the task. The well lay within a little glade not too far in from where he had started. Thinking that perhaps the sieve was some sort of bewitched item that had been enchanted to look like an ordinary kitchen utensil, Miliato went boldly up to the well, which turned out to be quite shallow, and dipped the sieve into the water. Alas, the water ran right through the utensil. It was real after all. Chagrined, the king sat on the lip of the well and puzzled over the dilemma. He thought and thought until his head swam, but there was no solution he could come to that would solve this predicament, and his time was draining rapidly. Somebody coughed, and startled, Miliato spun around with his sword half drawn, but stopped when he saw that it was only a woman, a very attractive woman if he was any judge of womankind. She was dark of hair and hazel-eyed, and wore a deep red dress that looked as if it were in desperate need of mending. He apologized for the speed at which he had drawn his sword, but the mysterious woman only smiled at him and asked what he was doing. In a few sentences, he explained that he was attempting to fill a sieve with water, although he did not bother to tell her why, her beauty having momentarily driven the female warrior from his mind. The mysterious woman laughed, a velvet laugh, and told him that that was an easy task to manage. Stunned, Miliato asked how it could be accomplished. The mysterious woman's smile only broadened, and she told the king she would tell him if he would kiss her. Mesmerized by her beauty and intrigued by her proposition, Miliato leaned forward, for now she was quite close, and kissed her full on her red mouth. She tasted of honeysuckle and something else metallic and dark. When at last she pulled away to whisper the answer to the riddle in his ear, the king burned for more, but did as she bid him. He returned to the oak tree with the sieve brimming with water, its hold stopped up with mud, and all memories of the mysterious woman fled his mind as he beheld his warrior woman. She looked mildly shocked that he had returned victorious, but congratulated him on his genius, telling him to return the following day, and she would set him another impossible task. The king agreed. There's our mysterious woman in the background next to the well. The following day, Miliato returned to the oak tree where he had found the female warrior waiting for him. Once again, she commanded him to halt, and the king obeyed readily. Confident that he would come no farther, the warrior instructed him, "Make her a shirt of neither silk nor stock, with neither seam nor stitch, to be delivered by the end of the day." The king was mystified, and again wished that she would set him some other feat. Hunting down and taming a manticore would have been more favorable. Unable to think of what else to do, he wandered off into the forest to hopefully seek out the answer, and found himself back at the well, where he had met the mysterious woman the day before. Feeling hopeless, Miliato sat on the lip of the well and tried, in vain, to puzzle out this latest riddle. Thought, until his brain was full to bursting, but there was no solution that he could find, and he only had till the end of the day. there was a shuffling sound, and, startled, Miliato spun around, with his small dagger in hand. It stopped when he saw the mysterious woman sitting quite close to him on the lip of the well. She smiled at him, and, feeling foolish, the king once again apologized for reacting so rashly. The mysterious woman waved his misgivings away, and asked why he had returned. Was he once again performing some silly task that he deemed impossible, but in truth was quite simple? And here she laughed merrily. Miliato's face turned red as he answered her, and explained that yes, that was indeed what he was doing, and he would appreciate it if she wouldn't mock his pain, as this new feat was extraordinarily difficult. Feigning at being contrite, the mysterious woman amended her amusement, and instead inquired as to the nature of this new predicament. After he divulged all, she did her best to hide her mirth, and told him that was an easy task to manage. Bemused, the king asked how it could be accomplished. Grinning, the mysterious woman told him that she would tell him if he would but spread his cloak upon the forest floor and lie with her. Miliato hesitated for the briefest of moments. Thoughts of his warrior love touched the edges of his mind, but the memory of this woman's first kiss awakened something else within him that couldn't be ignored, and chased everything else away. He agreed. Later that evening, the king emerged from the forest with a shirt of wool clutched firmly in his grasp, the memory of his encounter with the strange woman turning itself over and over in his head, haunting him. As he handed over the shirt to his warrior love, who was astounded beyond belief at his duplicity, the words the mysterious woman had spoken to him as he had watched her weave the woolen shirt, seemingly out of nothing, came unbidden to his mind. If a third time you should have need of me, a golden circlet shall I give to thee. On curls as black as night, the gold itself shall alight. So speak I now, so mote it be. The words themselves held no meaning for him, but the sense that he had bound himself to something unnameable made him feel ill at ease. Distantly, he heard the voice of his warrior love instruct him to return on the morrow, when she would set him the final task, and should he complete it, her hand in marriage would be certain. With that declaration, all thoughts of the mysterious woman were once again driven from his mind. He agreed readily. The next day, Miliato returned for the third and final time to seek out his future bride. When he saw her standing by the oak tree, he halted before she could command him to. Pleased by this, the female warrior left her tree and strode forward to meet him. Once she was close enough to touch him, she reached out and clasped both of his hands in hers. The king was startled by this sudden act of affection, but did not pull away. The warrior woman looked into his eyes and praised his accomplishments in answering all of her riddles. He only needed to answer this last, and she would be irrevocably his. He only needed to guess her name. Miliato blinked at her, dumbfounded, his mind reeling as it searched in vain for the answer. His mouth hung open stupidly as he asked if she would give him some time to think about it. The female warrior's smile faltered only a little, but she agreed. Letting go of her hands, the king wandered away to the only place he knew he could be alone to think, into the forest, to the well. Inside, the forest was dark, and the stones of the well that he perched on were cold. The king puzzled over this latest riddle like a man sifting through sand to find a pearl, but he could think of nothing. There was nothing to know. He resolved to return to his warrior and fulfill the promise he had made at the very beginning of their meeting. In failing this task, he would leave this forest and never again seek her out. As he turned to go, he found his path blocked by the mysterious woman. She smiled at him, and Miliato stopped abruptly. He apologized for disturbing her, and that he would be taking his leave of her glade immediately. She only laughed, her velvet laugh, and replied that she had known he would return, and produced a golden circlet from out of the folds of her dark cloak. The king was baffled by this gesture, and asked what she was doing with such a costly item. The mysterious woman's smile only widened as she repeated the words she had spoken to him the previous evening. "If a third time you should have need of me, a golden circlet shall I give to thee. On curls as black as night, the gold itself shall alight. So speak I now, so mote it be." As she finished, Miliato remembered, and the realization of what those words could mean struck him like a blow. He recoiled from her, saying that he had never promised her the keys to his kingdom, that his heart was promised to another, and the tasks he had been completing were for her favor alone. At this declaration, the woman's hand dropped to her side. The circlet clutched so tightly in her grasp, the metal bit into her skin, drawing blood. Her eyes blazed furiously as she demanded to know who this wretched maid was who would take the place of her. Miliato replied that she was a great warrior. Unlike herself, it was plainly an evil witch who had enchanted him. The laugh that ripped from the woman's throat was high and merciless, as she replied that creature was no match for her, Gothel, the most beautiful in all the swamplands. To think that he would believe for a second that the daughter of the Black Knights, Marie, was more desirable than her was preposterous. The king felt triumph swell inside him as the thing he most wanted slipped from the witch's lips like gold. Now it was his turn to laugh as he informed her that she had given him the answer he had been desperately seeking, the name of his one true bride. Gothel's face turned bright red with rage, and she screamed a curse at him. So be it. He could have his subpar bride, but she would never forget this deceit. "Because you have deceived me, upon thy head so shall it be. When pure joy touches your heart, woe shall I then impart. Be wary you the joy you find, and know that it should have always been mine. Because you have deceived me, so speak I now, so shall it be." A fog began to rise as she spoke these words, and when it had cleared, the witch was gone, as though she had never been. For a moment, Miliato sat trembling. Never in his life had he been so frightened of someone. But after some reflection, he reasoned that there was no reason for him to be afraid. He was the king, after all, and should that witch ever show her face in his kingdom ever again, he would have her banished. His thoughts soothed, he left the shadow of the glade and the well, never once daring to look back, as he returned to the oak tree, where his bride waited with restless anticipation. When she caught sight of him, she rushed to his side at once, and again asked him to reveal her name. The king took her hands in his, and leaned forward so that he could whisper it softly in her ear. "Marie." Thrilled beyond belief, Marie threw her arms around Miliato and kissed him until they were both quite breathless. Then, hand in hand, the two of them returned to Miliato's castle, where they were married in splendor, and the once proud warrior became Queen Marie II, and she and the king spent many happy days together. Eventually, the queen did conceive, and she bore her husband 6 beautiful children: Charming, Philippe, Ferdinand, Daring, Dexter, and Darling. And that is the end of chapter 2. The whole thing over. Hello, kitten. I see you. So, if anyone has any questions about what has transpired so far, comments, concerns, snide remarks, I've been waiting to use that for a hot minute, you can always pop them up here in the chat box, or when the live has concluded. I'm very active here on my art page, so I will answer any and all. And that was a huge chunk of story. A lot of foreshadowing coming in. Loving the story. Thank you, kitten. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you guys get enjoyment out of this. I have a great time writing it. So, yay. Let me see. Was there anything I wanted to talk about for this story? I guess not much. I did change the hours for when I will be reading, as I've mentioned in previous lives, but I'll just reiterate for the class. The schedule in my house has changed. My husband now has Mondays off, so I will no longer be reading on Monday nights, because I would like to spend as much time with him as humanly possible, because we now have all the days off together. But other than that, I think that's kind of everything we have. We will be getting into chapter 3 next week, and hopefully I'll be able to read all of it to you guys, because the last section is not done yet. Because April hit when I decided that I was going to take a break from writing, but I might have to sneak in just a little bit to get that ending done so I can read it to you guys, because oh, it is sad. Oh, it is heartbreaking. And the foreshadowing I am doing as of this moment is actually, without giving too many spoilers, is actually coming into a story that I made up when I was a very, very little girl. I must have been about 6 or 7. And it happens with Prince Charming. I guess I've always been I've always kind of known that princes are trash. I don't know why I decided at such a young age, Prince Charming must suffer. But I did. So that's the thing you all get to look forward to, watching poor Prince Charming suffer. For any of you people out there that really love the story of Cinderella, I'm sorry for what's about to happen. I think that's all I have for the evening. I will tell Nate you said hi, kitten. He's actually in the other room. He might be able to hear me say that, but I will tell him that for you. Anyway, that is it for this evening. Thank you guys so much for showing up and joining me here. I much appreciate. And I will hopefully see you guys next week. I should be reading Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but I will post if for some reason I change my mind and I want to read on a Friday instead. You always see the notifications of when I'm doing this, so I'm pretty good about that. So, have a great rest of your evening. Stay safe. I love you all, and I will see you next week. Same time, same public theater stage. Good night, guys. Bye.